It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
No fear here on Declare Your Independence with me, Ernest Hancock, here in Phoenix, Arizona, from the BEA beautiful studios of Freedoms of the Nest, freedomsphoenix.com, here at the farm, where we have the ability to grow some stuff. What might we want to grow? Now, we went ahead and put in the back. It didn't do well. We started a little too late because it was a cold spring, and the starter plants that we had from companies and our own seeds didn't do well, but we tried to plant tobacco. I wanted to be able to roll me some Freedom's Phoenix cigars. And what's the first question I get from people? I mean, seriously, this is the mindset that we have created for ourselves. They go, is that legal? And I go, according to what? Well, you grow your own tobacco in your backyard. Is that legal? I'm not mustering up enough give a crap for me to go and ask. I mean, because I'm like, if you think you need to ask permission, you deserve to be told no. So I'm not going to give somebody, they'll come in and say, we seized these 8 tobacco plants of Ernie Hancock and, the 12 o'clock news. I mean, I'm going, seriously? So this mindset is what we're really fighting. And one reason why I wanted to do it. So we're doing it again. We're starting them again. And so, because Phoenix, they say plant then. Well, not in Phoenix, you don't. So we're learning that. So along with the other garden products, we're learning stuff here. But, what about marijuana? Here in Arizona, marijuana has been made semi-legal, and you have these private growers, man, they are everywhere. We're going to talk about the economics of marijuana production. Now, we have Professor Dr. Christopher Glenn Fitchner. Now, Dr. Fitchner, am I saying your name right?
Yes.
Okay, so Dr. Fitchner, we've talked before, and he's the author of Cannabinomics, the Marijuana Policy Tipping Point. Now, go ahead and explain to me. Now, I know that you're was a staff psychiatrist for Riverside County Department of Mental Health in Southern California. Mm-hmm. I know that you've written this book. You also have taught at the Illinois University School of Medicine, right?
I've taught at several medical schools in Illinois. Currently, I have a faculty appointment as a clinical professor at the Southern Illinois University School of Medicine.
Okay, so here's someone that's, he's not outside the system. He's in the system. Now, in the system, are you considered the fringe inside the system? They go that crazy Dr. Fitchner, or had some respect from your peers, or what?
Well, mercifully, I haven't really been called that, even by my close peers and colleagues. I will say that my interest in drug policy and this, in the medical marijuana movement and all the things that I write about in Cannabinomics, my interest in that has really grown over the last 7 or 8 years. So something that I started becoming more interested in around 2002, 2003. And prior to that, I was fairly mainstream in terms of my interests. So this is a topic that takes me more to the fringe, but I've done a lot of work as a mental health administrator. So I've done a lot of research with working with other colleagues on things like what are the costs of accessing mental health care in public systems? Is it worth it to invest money in new medications? If you pay more for medications, do you get a back-end benefit by keeping people out of the hospital? So I've made a career of looking at those kinds of systems influences in healthcare. And then when I might as well make this segue for you. It was really in 2003 that I ran across data from the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority. The Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority, right around the time, actually would have been by 2004, that I ran across 2003 data that I reviewed when I was Director of Mental Health. And those data really kind of catapulted my interest forward in the marijuana issue. And the reason for that is because the data showed that there were more people, there were more marijuana arrests for marijuana possession in the state of Illinois than there were for all other controlled substances combined. And the data were not that far off nationally. It wasn't the same everywhere in every state, but it wasn't far off from that. And so it was that was of interest to me at that time, because we were looking at the overlap and the similarities between the state the acute state hospital psychiatric population and the jail populations, because the jails are filled with a lot of people that have both a mental health diagnosis of some kind, a psychiatric diagnosis, and a substance use issue. And that issue may be they may have an addictive or substance abuse disorder, or they may simply have just gotten busted for possession of something and, not necessarily having a disorder at all. So it was those issues that, we were looking at the similarities of those two populations, the overlap between them, the acute psychiatric hospital population and the jail population, that made the marijuana arrest data of particular interest to me. So it was really around 2003, 2004 that I started becoming much more interested in drug policy, drug control policy as a public policy issue, and all of the healthcare, public health, and, yes, economic implications of that.
Okay. With your data that you got and your understanding of the issue, we had recently here, just a couple of weeks ago, criminal defense attorney Mark Victor, which is a good friend of mine. We're partners on the Freedom Summit that we do every year. And he has always wanted to debate a prosecutor or judge on this. He's done a lot of presentations that included a lot of prosecutors and judges. He's very vocal about his position. He makes a lot of money on the drug war as a criminal defense attorney. But he wrote an article, said, legalize methamphetamine. And, of course, whenever you say legalize drugs or marijuana, they go, yeah, but what about meth? He's like, yeah, that too, man. The drug war is the biggest threat to everything that you're trying to stop. The war itself is much more damaging than the drugs. Well, as time went around, the Federalist Society eventually got, just a couple of weeks ago, they are, a bunch of attorneys that, want to be prosecutors and defense attorney, whatever, from Arizona State University College of Law. But what they did is they had this big auditorium, it was like 500 and something seat auditorium, where they had Mark J. Victor debated the Maricopa County attorney here named Bill Montgomery. And man, you never saw a right-wing warrior for the cause of Jesus in your life. I mean, this guy was like, I got the authority of the shiny badge, the gun, and I'm voted to office, and we're going to go kick us some butt. Well, they're both were members of the Federal Society when they went to ASU Law School there, so that kind of, got them in to where they had this debate. Big deal, man. I mean, they going at it. Well, the aspect of this whole issue about the economics of it, the healthcare issues of it, all of that didn't mean anything to the prosecution. No, it is the role of government to determine that which is good and that which is bad, and then we're going to, enforce whatever that rule is according to us. So the argument of, economics of it, the argument of how much money you would save by not prosecuting this war on some drugs, and it's really, and the point that Mark was making was that the war itself is much more damaging than whatever the perceived threat from the actual drug use is. In fact, a lot of the problems are from it being black market, are from, disputes being settled with gunfire in the street instead of being able to go to court.
Yes.
And from all this, so I'm looking at, this is just a side effect of a much larger issue, is what is the proper role of government in this. So from someone in your position that's in the government, that gets access to this data, that talks to the people in there, that they look to you for your expertise on this issue, and you write a book. So I'm going, all right, where's your opposition? Who the guys on the other side? I mean, I know some of these people. I mean, in the positions of the highest authority, we're going to put your butt in jail. We're going to spend all this money on enforcing this drug war as opposed to, I don't know, like real crime. So I'm going, all right, how are you perceived? I mean, I guarantee you are talking to these people. In fact, you have people right after you get on some show, they're calling in to the talk show. They are writing the op-ed afterwards. They're saying, and I'm going, who are these people? What is the industry? What is the motivation of these people in the face of all this information that they're wrong? Who are you up against?
You cover a lot of ground there.
We got time.
Yeah,
you go right ahead.
Cover a lot of ground, and I don't know that there's a simple answer to that. I mean, I think one of the things that drives certain conspiracy theories, whether it was explaining marijuana prohibition back in 1937, or explaining what the catapulting forward with Nixon's drug war, or explaining what sustains it today. Depending on what time in history you are, you might, come up with a number of different conspiracy theories, and people have. But I think the way that I look at it is you have a variety of interests that coalesce in one way or another, and those interests end up having a prevailing influence. So, we could talk about the alcohol and tobacco industries. We could talk about the drug testing industry. We could talk about the pharmaceutical industry. We could talk about what else am I missing? No, we could talk about the prison industrial complex, and
we can talk about the drug kingpins. They're the one they want it to be illegal. That's how they make their money. It's prohibition.
Certainly, and then law enforcement. It may be a bit of a wild card in this because, on the one hand, on balance, there probably is the benefits of the money that they get for perpetuating the drug war.
Ding, 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 ding.
There's also a good number of people within the law enforcement community, whether it's at the court level, justices and attorneys, or whether it's at the law enforcement level, police officers or former narcotics agents. There are a number of them in an organization like LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, that have spoken out, or at the very least have said, at least decriminalize marijuana so that it doesn't clog up the court system with cases that nobody really wants to prosecute anyway. So at least in terms of low-level possession. So I don't want to make this too. I'm not trying to sidestep your question here, but let's take, I think that I'm in full agreement that the larger, there is a much larger issue when the opposition takes the stand that it's government's role to determine what's good and what's bad, and we're just going to defend that. But then certain topics end up being discussed in ways that are so the language is so inflammatory and the generalizations so far-reaching or sweeping that they miss subtleties. For example, you mentioned your friend writing the article on legalizing methamphetamine. Well, that's one I love to talk about because the reality is, depending on what you mean by legal, methamphetamine is already legal. I mean, the fact of the matter is methamphetamine is a Schedule II medicine. It is available as a prescription medicine. It goes under the brand name Desoxyn, Desoxyn. Desoxyn is prescription methamphetamine hydrochloride. So obviously, people don't mean when they say legalize methamphetamine, they don't mean turn it into a medicine because it already is that. Although the reality is most people engaging in this debate do not know what I just said. In fact, you'll find a lot of doctors who don't know that. They know that amphetamine, dextroamphetamine or dexedrine is legal. They know that. It's used for certain problems. It has been used as a weight loss drug in the past, but more commonly it's used to treat attention deficit disorder. But it is a Schedule II medicine, and we also know that Ritalin is a Schedule II medicine as well. But a lot of doctors don't actually know that methamphetamine per se, the same molecule, methamphetamine, is still in Schedule II. It still is a prescription medicine. It's not used very commonly, mostly, I would argue, because of the stigma, but on the whole, it's not a bad medicine as compared with either Dexedrine or Adderall or Ritalin. It is a medicine that belongs in the formulary of what doctors use to treat attention deficit disorder and some other kinds of problems.